Veritas.
So,
I wish.
or tequila.
I also wish. I have lots of wishes.
So we
I know what I want to talk about.
okay.
Because anything I know about musical theater is in this book called Making Musicals, which is available here. Not terribly expensive, and it's an easy read, and it really does. I mean, the first half is my own take about like the history of the form and how it got to be what it is, what rivers came together to form it. But the second half is full of, if anybody's interested in the form, it talks about how you find a partner, how you...
Right.
Right. Yes, that's right. Some similarities and some differences, yeah. And how you like choose a project, how you look for the basic structure, what are the things you need to check against, how you work on lyrics, how you resolve problems, how do you try to get a production on, and then how do you manage to survive in such a competitive world and still be a civilized person with self-respect.
And that happens to be available in the lobby. And the copies out there are autographed by Tom. So it's a wonderful book. So we got up to I Do. And about in there, isn't that when you and Harvey took this bold step of creating the portfolio workshop?
Right, it is. I mean, somebody had mentioned, we asked one of the two of the questions, I'm asking about Mary and Bob, and I just talked Mary Martin and Robert Preston. Mary, such an interesting, they're both interesting, but they're so different. She was this mixture of opposites. You know, in the theater, when you're in rehearsal, everybody, it doesn't matter how big you are, even if you're David Merrick or whatever, Gower, Champion, like when lunchtime comes, you have the same old greasy sandwich, you know, and the styrofoam cup with the coffee, whatever. For lunchtime, we rehearsed at the theater where we performed. And for lunchtime, Mary's butler, chef, Ernesto, drove up in the silver Rolls Royce at a parking place in Schubert Alley. He would go across the stage carrying a little wicker basket from Fortnum and Mason. He would go to her dressing room, where her husband, Richard Halliday, was. He would spread a tablecloth, cloth napkins. She already had flowers there. And he would serve dinner. And we were all like this. But what's interesting is that what she ate then would be exactly what she would have eaten in Weatherford, Texas, if she had stayed there. So it was this strange combination. And
You mean like fried chicken? Or
well, I mean, it was like, you know, some string beans and a little sliced tomatoes and, you know, whatever, you know, iced tea. She totally didn't want to do the show. She was like, the other thing is like, in a way I admired very much. She was a very professional, but she was also, in some ways, like an amateur. And I loved that combination of the somewhat naivete and the enthusiasm of an amateur mixed with the skills of a professional. One of the great dangers for a performer, or anybody in the theater, or I guess anything, is to become too smart, to become cynical, to become wise. You've got to retain a little bit of innocence somehow. So, now, and Robert, just the, you know, like she had, in her contract, she had to have her dressing room redone, and David Berry had to agree to like $30,000 to redo her dressing room. And I thought, what vanity. But then I saw, no, not at all. She did 6 parts in this, and she did 6 costumes, 6 wigs, and then she had a 7th costume and a 7th wig for after the show. Outside her dressing room, her husband managed to do this, and I don't know how, like a magician. People would go by, and she would say, "Oh, Emmy Lou, I haven't seen you since I was touring in South Pacific," and you know, whatever. Because Mary couldn't remember anything. So he was somehow feeding this to her. And then she would go into her dressing room, which was glass walls and a kind of salmon pink. I don't, probably none of you remember Pearl's Restaurant on 46, 47. It was one of the, it was the only place where you could go and reliably see Irving Berlin. And a little tiny place, but the walls were the color that everybody looked younger than they really were. That was true of the walls. And then there, she would do another, in effect, performance. And there would be the stars, the glittering, you know, the things you want. And I went back one night, and there was Noel Coward there. And he said to me, he said, "I'm a very wise and a very wicked old man. And I must tell you, this is beautiful work." And he was going to Jamaica. He was ill at that point. And he sent me a ship-to-shore cable, like a page and a half, telling me what, admiring the work I had done on these. And it was so different when we were young in Texas. We all were trying to be Noel Coward, you know, like trying to be so snotty and everything. And there was the generous man.
Wow. So, we're probably up to portfolio days.
Yeah.
On 47th Street, an old church.
That's right, a church for immigrant weddings with high ceilings, as high as this, you know. And Harvey designed the theater to be made into a workshop theater.
A slight digression, if I may. You talk about Harvey's graphic career, but his graphic career informed all of your works, design-wise, even the basic idea of the set for the Fantastics.
Oh, that was exactly, no, the set for the Fantastics was exactly the set he had designed for Portfolio Review when we were all over the country of New York. It was exactly that platform, those poles.
And the look of all the graphics, the famous Fantastics logo, the Celebration logo, that's Harvey's handwriting. And
yeah.
But Harvey's a brilliant designer, as you can see from much of the stuff that's out in the blog.
Yeah. Anyway, and for any of you who were there for Show Goes On, we wanted to experiment with the form with musical theater. We wanted to particularly look further into this presentational form, take it a step further. And we were also, in Greek tragedy, there's something called hubris, which is followed immediately by nemesis. Pride cometh before a fall, to put it another way. And we were hot stuff, you know. We had never had a flop in New York. I mean, we had a lot of bad notices, but the Fantastics was in its like 6th year, 7th year, and we'd been Tony nominated for 110, and it was a respectable production. And I Do, making lots of money. I mean, I never saw such money. You know? And I never dreamed I would ever be able to make a living doing this. It was never about that. It just was partly the love of the thing, and partly I was totally inept at anything else. But so we thought, well, we're going to not only, we're going to direct ourselves, design, we're going to do original musicals. They're going to be in new and untried forms, and we're going to be the absolute darlings of it in the world, you know. Well, it didn't turn out like that. But you have to, that, the, the big failure that we had there, critically, and it opened, that's when I began to really learn about musicals. I really, it's like I got serious about it. I'm determined, what's not, when this is not connecting, what is it? I can't just say it's them, it's me. What do I need to know? What do I do? And what is the enormous vanity of thinking that we can, almost nobody ever does original musicals in the theater anyway. But then to do them and in new forms and blah, 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 you know.
But over the course of the portfolio of years, the names I know of are Celebration, Philemon, The Bone Room, Rat Fink.
Rat Fink was never
really
done there.
finished.
That became The Bone Room, really.
Oh, really? Oh.
And Portfolio Review. And
which was the precursor.
Well, the show goes on. It was very much the same form as the show goes on. And
but so most notably out of the portfolio years was Celebration because it got the most attention.
Well, it did. I mean, the best reviews we've ever gotten in our career whatsoever, aside from the show goes on here, was Philemon, which won a lot of awards and was picked up on television and was, it was like universally praised as a new discovery. And it was, and it's unique, and it doesn't get many productions. I'm sorry to say, because it's really good, and but it's hard to do it because it's part of it is low comedy, and part of it is the martyrdom of a saint in death and transfiguration. So it's like pushing the edge of the envelope, but it actually pushes it in a successful way.
And Celebration, was that the first show?
Yeah, that was the first show there.
And it got very good reviews also, did it not?
No.
Oh.
Well.
Then how was it picked up to move to Broadway?
Well, it was already picked up. It was picked up before we. When we did it in our workshop, where it was smashing there, really. Although smashing, and then in the sense that it also it had and still has serious flaws, which I have not been able to completely solve yet. But you know, we had, as I said, we'd never had flop, and we were bankable. Well, those were the days. And so when people were like thrusting money on us, so we had the money, and we had already done the pre-production, we'd already made the costumes, and we still had to pay unions, all that. And Harvey had made the masks, and we had to pay somebody else for the credit for it. But it was, and we had saved enough money thinking we had on almost everything got the mixed notices. But these were more than mixed. And the show felt phony on a Broadway stage. It really did. In its heart of hearts, it's an off-Broadway show. It's more out there, it's stranger, it's more experimental, and it's full of strange stuff. Plus, it's full of a couple of good Lollapalooza flaws too.
Well, next then, at some point, portfolio, you decided to not continue with it.
Right. We box up everything. We're still paying in storage. 35 years later, my God, we're still. I can't believe it. We still, but hope. Hope is a thing with feathers. Said more than one of the old-time pioneers. I didn't have nothing when I landed here, and I ain't got nothing now, but I got some hope. I ain't lost hope. So we're still holding all that. Anyway, the Bone Room, about It's as I said before, a middle-aged musical about male menopause, and it's the man who glues bones in the Museum of Natural History, and has this. It's funny, but then it has this strange encounter. He forms a ménage à trois with Death and a young maiden. It's Death and a maiden. You know, it's that's what off-Broadway's for, right? But we bought a human skeleton because one of the things he's there beside the human skeleton there a lot, and so when we boxed up everything to keep it in storage, one of the last things we boxed up was this human skeleton, and somehow in there's a little one of those little false tooth things in the show that goes ha 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 ha, and after we boxed the whole thing up, somehow that thing went off. There's this boxed up, this human skeleton that went, ha ha ha.
So next was a big Broadway show to be called Colette.
Yes, Colette. Which we did. We didn't intend it. We did it. It was written more as an off-Broadway show.
To be small.
And our friend Harry Rigby, who had just produced and was hugely successful, Sugar Babies, Harry said, "Oh, you can't keep doing things off Broadway. You gotta take the chance and go ahead and go on Broadway." I'm gonna get Debbie to do it, you know. So.
Debbie Reynolds.
Debbie Reynolds. So we went out and we played it. What we had, Debbie Reynolds, whom I admire a lot, and she burst into tears. She connected with it so deeply. She was just like a basket case, really. And so we thought, okay. And so then we came to talk to the Schuberts about the theater, and they absolutely hated Harvey Schuberts. They absolutely said many nasty things, and they persuaded Debbie that she shouldn't be doing the show. And so Harry said, well, we got to get somebody, and we also had to get a director. So we got Diana Rigg, who's very talented, but there were some problems, let me put it that way. And then they booked in Seattle, that huge theater, the Fifth Avenue. Enormous. It was an old movie palace, still with all the grandeur, you still had all the trappings, you know. And there we were, and Harry plunging forward, still with Debbie in his heart of hearts, had Hilary Knight do the poster, which is out in the lobby, and you'll see it, and there's it says Diana Rigg, but there's Debbie Reynolds, like in her gown from Irene, throwing stardust in the air, and the sign says, when Paris was naughty, Colette was the naughtiest one of all. And of course, what we were writing was quite a very different piece of that. And we got in trouble out of town, and we had meetings in Harry's suite, and Colette loved animals, cats and dogs. The cat, Diana Rigg hated cats, and the opening night in Seattle, the cat was clawed and the blood just spurting from her arm. And the dog, the little bulldog, got sick, and got some kind of infection, and Hilary Knight made one of those lampshade things like this, you know, to go out, and we'd have these meetings. And the little dog took to me, you know, and he would like leap up here, and the dog had the worst breath. So he was like, and there was this thing, this huge lampshade cone, and the dog, and he like this, and Harry said, "He loves you, Tommy. He loves you." So that was a disaster. It had some good people in it. I mean, it had Marta Eggert on who just last week celebrated her 100th birthday and is still singing. It had Sir Robert Helpman, who, you know, in the Red Shoes and millions of other things, and Robert Helpman at that point, however, was so pickle party he could not do a waltz step. You know, we had always danced numbers by Marty Vidnovic, who came out of it smelling like a rose. John Reardon, great voice, and playing Missy, Colette's lover when she was in her lesbian years, was Marty Stevens, who was Louis B. Mayer's daughter and the lover of Marlene Dietrich. So it was all together a pretty ensemble. And a huge cast and so many spangles. I mean, it really looked like MGM at its gaudiest. And it was a disaster. So then when that imploded, we went to York, after York had done the first revival, 110 The Shade, and said, can we try to do this like as we originally envisioned it? And that was the beginning of the revival of Collage. That was very well reviewed and received at that time. And, you know, I continued to work on it. I continued to work on almost everything, except the Fantastics. Finally, I'm finally through with that, as of this last production. Although somebody asked that I changed the last line, and indeed I did that just last May.
And why was that?
The last line for years and years was, leave the wall. The guy says, you must always leave the wall. And fairly early on, it occurred to me, it might be very meaningful. It had nothing to do with this show whatsoever. That is not the meaning of this show. The meaning of the show is, without a hurt, the heart is hollow. Deep in December, it's, you know, it's this passage of time, growing out of romanticism, as I described earlier, seeing things in their real color. That's what it's about. But Laurie Noto had paid for the contract had been that thing, and he wouldn't let me change it. It was his favorite thing. It was like to him the meaning of the whole show, which it's not. So finally, and I never could figure out, when we reopened this, I still had the other, and I couldn't. And finally, I just thought, Amamoto was getting ready to do it in Tokyo again. I know he was going to do an English production in London, and he said, "Can we do something about that?" I said, "Well, yes, damn it." So I said, a guy who says, instead of it, you remember, you must leave the wall, whatever. He says, forget the wall. It's not about the wall. And then he sings the last chorus, Deep in December. And that's what it's about. One slightly amusing story is the first production done in Russia took place right after the Berlin Wall came down. And they asked if we could change that line.
Would you mind telling the nun story? About
how much time have we got?
Oh, we have to rush through the rest of the career.
Yeah.
Oh, let's skip the nun story.
The nun story.
About the nun who wants to do the Fantastics after school.
Yeah, real quickly. I mean, the rape song we used to have in there, which again, like I tried for years to get rid of, finally did. Much better show, and the song works just as great, or better. But we got a letter from this Mother Superior or something, and they had done an all-girl production of the Fantastics. He said, well, of course we couldn't use the word rape. So we have a solution that worked well for us and got a lot of laughs and everything, and we thought maybe you'd like it too. They changed it to snatch. I'm sure it got you could get the snatch emphatic in the And so I'm sure it didn't get a lot of laughs. Sanctus simplicitus.
So other shows that you and Harvey did, perhaps in order, well.
Correct Courage, we talked about
Yes,
that. We did.
yes.
Marionette and Grover's Corners, which we did a number from, and at the show goes on. And now we're, then Harvey's retired, right?
Yeah, Harvey's in Texas, you might want to.
Well, Harvey is in ill health, I'm sorry to say, but in good spirits, considering the fact that he's still ill. He got very overweight, and then he had to have a triple bypass, and then he had to have a hip replacement, which did in a wheelchair or on a stroller. But he's in a very beautiful house and studio, which he's fixed up for himself. And he always wanted to be back in Texas, always wanted to be back. Not me.
But you all were in regular contact?
Yeah, every
week or so?
Yeah, every week.
And much more so with this series.
Yes, but even so, we still. And my wife Janet, who's out there somewhere listening to this for the 1000th time, she deserves a medal. But she makes, once a month, Harvey's guy who works for her, he used to work, John Shack, goes and spends a week and helps Harvey get everything straightened out and do all his papers and this and that, whatever. And Janet every month makes a big thing of beautiful homemade granola, which John carries out. And Harvey loves so much so that every month he sends Janet a painting or a graphic thing about granola.
Which I think she should, I hope you'll publish them. The granola papers. They're very impressive pieces of artwork. So the question now is, what do you? Well, other things.
Let's talk about Harold and
other
Maude.
shows. Yeah, Game of Love.
Harold
and Maude.
Harold and Maude. And, yeah, I would just talk a little bit about it. And again, we've worked a long time on this. It's a very tricky thing to do. But I'm very happy with this version, which I've never seen. But I just know we're really getting close, and maybe we're actually arrived. So I'm going to do a couple of lyrics from Harold and Maude without wonderful music, but I won't tarnish the music by singing it. But these are 3 different, maybe I'll just do 2, but of Maude's. Her first song, when she meets him there at a funeral, and she's talking about life, death a little bit. She sings to a beautiful melody. You take my word for it. Nightly, brightly in the sky, wheels of fire go spinning by. Giant spiral nebulae spinning round and round, round and round and round. Look inside some microscope. What seems solid isn't, nope. In each tiny isotope, other worlds abound. And they're spinning, always spinning, round and round and round. Births and deaths and births again, joy, despair, romance. Round and round the circles spin, it's the cosmic dance. See the lovers bending low, see the seed beneath the snow. Out of darkness, life can grow. This is what I've found. We are in a cosmic dance, spinning round and round, round and round and round. And so that's the opening. At the end, which is quite different in many ways from the film, because in this, she knows she's ill, and she has chosen to take her life, not just because she, in the film she just says, at 80 seems like a good age to do it, you know. But since I'm 84, I can't buy that. And I couldn't buy it ever, you know. It's written by a 24-year-old, a very brilliant 24-year-old man, but it's a 24-year-old man's view. But at the end, so she tells him that and he's very upset, but she's trying to calm him, and he wants to go get help. She says, no, I want you to be here to help me make my journey, to make my passage. And then trying to comfort him and clarify for him, she sings this. She sings, "We're like birds who are perched on the limbs of a tree. When the time is right, we simply fly away. Then other birds come and take our places, but they won't stay. We come, we go, it was always so, and so it will always be. We're like a flock of birds moving endlessly. But listen to me, I want you to know the most important thing. Before the time when we must fly away, we have the chance to sing. Don't miss the chance to sing." And of course, there's a lot of funny stuff too. I don't want to scare anybody away. Necrology.
I'm very excited about doing it and doing this new version. It's in
Yes,
one act.
a one act,
It's
and
never been done that way before.
No,
It's a
and-
New York premiere.
and it's like it's got at least 3 songs that have never been done before.
The other show to come in the series is The Game of Love, which is earlier in
Yeah,
its gestation.
yeah. That was like Roadside, a long gestation. It was something I started and then dropped. In the late 50s, Harvey was so busy with his artwork and traveling around the world so much. You know, I had told this story before the other day, but eventually, when we got our first Broadway show, 110th Shade, they decided on rehearsal time in August, and it just so happened that Harvey had signed a contract with Sports Illustrated to go on a tiger hunt with the Shah of Iran at that same period of time to do paintings to bring back for Sports Illustrated. So Harvey had to decide, and he decided to stay and do the Broadway show. And from that time on, he stopped doing all these commercial art things, except doing art and designs and posters and masks and scenes and so
Ben
forth.
Bagley's record
And
covers.
did Bagley's things, yeah, for us. But what was the? How did I get into that?
We were getting to a Game of Love.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Harvey was still busy, and so I looked around for something I could do. I didn't really want to get with another composer, but but I found I loved Offenbach music a lot, and I had for years been interested in the Anatole plays by Schnitzler. So I put them together in a form called Anatole that had 6 pieces of music by Offenbach. And that was done, it was the first production done by the Association of Producing Artists, APA. Ellis Rabb and Rosemary Harris. Rosemary was in it. And the first season they did was in Bermuda Theater there. And then they came and played around here. But that production opened the same week as the Fantastics. So I obviously wasn't able to be part of it. Later it came here and it played at the McCarter Theater in Princeton. It played the John Drew Theater. It played several other theaters, but not in New York City. And so then Ellis and I came to a disagreement about it. And he wanted to do it a certain way in New York City, and I said no. And so he did his own version without music of the Anatole plays, which was clearly based on my version, because it included some things in there, some scenes that I've written that are not from Schnitzler at all. But it didn't have, mine is really good. You know, mine is, I have for almost 50 years, kept this piece, and whenever I'm depressed, I pick it up and I work a little bit on it and polish a little, and it is, if you hope you'll come and you'll make your own decision, but it is elegantly, it's finessed. And somewhere along the line, there was a production at a Lord Theater in Minneapolis, no, Milwaukee. And I got Nancy Ford, who had been music director and pianist at the Fantastics, and she had married the El Gallo, Keith Charles, and I got them both to be in it, him playing Anatole and her playing the piano. And then she began, I wanted to have more than 6 pieces, so she helped me find and she helped me set some other pieces. And then as we continued to work after that, she added 3 or 4 pieces on her own, which are beautiful, beautiful things. And totally, you couldn't begin to guess which was hers and which was Offenbach. Offenbach is known for his famous galops and can-cans, but he's a wonderful melodic writer with a kind of rich, rueful quality. He started off as a cellist, and I think you can hear that in the music. It's a mellow, mellow quality, but it has also the fun things. I got to write, I loved writing some of the lyrics to some of the Offenbach things. One little lyric I particularly liked that I sang when we did a little recording of it is about ménage à trois. And this old man still trying to be young, and he sings, at one point he sings, "Two young ladies, ooh la la, I just adore a ménage à trois. For oh, the joys that you can incur when your infatuation is triangular. And oh, the pleasures you can produce when you're the bottom of the right hypotenuse." And another fun one is called "Love Conquers All." It's a wonderful tune from Perico, I think. And this diva sings. You talk about in her musical show she does. She sings this, and it's all about she kills, emasculates, whatever, these guys who are untrue to her. But one of the verses is. I later fell for a dramatic poet. How could I know it would be a curse? For the moment my love was overflowing, he'd jump right up and he'd go from bed to verse. I later saw him with another woman, and something that led me terribly depressed. I grabbed his pen, I stabbed him then. I wrote these words upon his chest: love conquers all, love conquers all. I've been referred to as a new Medea, a strange idea, but then again, they say revenge is the sweetest panacea. And I have often revenged myself on men. So if you dare to choose me and desert me, though it would hurt me, still I guarantee, if you deceive, I will relieve you of your masculinity. And the 2 men sitting there across the road.
So Nancy wrote songs and adapted
Yes.
Much of the Offenbach.
That's right. Nancy wrote some beautiful songs. There's a beautiful song, "Listen to the Rain," and there's a beautiful song about seasons come, seasons go, about the changing world as they move from the 19th century into the 20th.
Well, that's coming up in a month or so in our series here.
And we have a great Anatole, Santino Fontana. I don't know if you know that name. He's he's the critically acclaimed, is the most brilliant young actor and singer in New York City, which he is. He came and he did the Fantastics for us. It was his first New York thing. He had just finished doing Hamlet at the Guthrie at age 24. And he was in The Importance of Being Earnest, played Ernest, you know, a year or so ago here.
And he did a reading at Harold and Maude.
Yes, he was wonderful as Harold. He's a little too old now, but we have a great Harold. That guy's going to be a big star.
Matt Dengler.
Matt Dengler.
We have to talk about your current project.
Yes, I'm working with a young composer named Andrew Gerle, and I think Andrew's out there. Is he out
There
there?
he is, ladies and gentlemen. Right
Yes, yes. Oh, and this is a musical version of The Tempest called La Tempesta, and I think it's the best. I know it's the best work I've ever done in my life, so it's very thrilling to me at this age to be absolutely certain this is the best thing I've done. I'll do a lyric from that. I think the other day, any of you who were there at the first talk through, I think I did maybe a little bit about Prospero's first song. This is a song, Andrew just sent me some beautiful music today. I just downloaded it. This is a song from Miranda, Prospero's daughter, sings to Ferdinand, the young man she's enamored of. She sings, "I do not care for magic. Magic makes me sad, as if the things you conjure up surpass the things you had. I don't believe in omens or wishing on a star. I prefer to place my faith in things the way they are. Some people think a rabbit that emerges from a fancy hat is something quite miraculous to see. A rabbit that is sitting still beside a meadow or a hill seems miraculous to me. I don't believe in silken scarves that turn into a dove. I don't believe in magic, but I do believe in love. You touch me and I'm changed inside. I do believe in love." Get your tickets now.
That is not quite ready to be in our series this time, but who knows for the future.
Now you have questions.
Yeah, we have some questions from the audience. If anyone has to go for some reason, we'll take a 30-second pause for you to get up and leave. But otherwise, we're going to do some quick questions from the audience. Okay, here we go. I'm going to skip that one. I can't read that one. Sorry, I'm not doing too well here. The movie of the Fantastics was the first DVD I ever bought. I love the movie. What do you think of it?
No, I don't think it's very good. There are parts of it that I love very much. I love the whole of the "Soon It's Gonna Rain" is like a miraculous coming together to me of what could be, and also some of the carnival things. But moving these things into realistic houses and therefore having to rewrite scenes and things, it really didn't work for me. And also, the director was a wonderful man, but Harvey and I both disagreed with the casting of the El Gallo, and we really just didn't have the power. Writers don't mean anything in Hollywood.
The question I couldn't read was, Colette, the leading ladies, question mark? I assume that means...
Well, I think that's probably... Oh, no, I think it probably, like Diana Rigg and all those people like that. So I think we're kind of covered with Colette.
Okay, fine. I thought it was... we have Christine Andreas to play Colette here. And she will be fabulous. We answered this question. Trust me, we didn't. Did you ever want or have the opportunity to work with other composers? I think we've sort of...
Yeah, no,
I noticed that in the revival of the Fantastics, the final, never mind. So, see, I haven't read these. So what happened or will to The Street Where the Heart Lies?
Oh, nothing. I think it's a terrible idea for a musical. I mean, Gower had bought it. But we wrote a couple of good tunes, which we then lifted when the project to put into Mirette. So there's several tunes in Mirette that are from that.
French. What advice can you offer to a songwriting team that's just getting started in today's economic and political? As a New York teenager, I knew every song and every word to the New York-themed review on TV, New York Scrapbook. I think I still do. Why has it never been released as an audio or video recording?
Well, it's the video was a kinescope, you know, it's not very good quality. And I do have a copy of it. And it's funny, just recently in digging through that to show people when we're working on Show Goes On, I thought, my God, we could put that together. There's a lot of good material. There's a lot of material that isn't good because it was like 2 hours long, and we didn't have that much material. So it's filled with stuff that doesn't really apply. But the stuff that does apply is plentiful and is good. It even holds up now, you know.
Put it
Some
on
of
YouTube.
it. What?
Put it on YouTube.
Well, now I think I'm going to put it on stage.
Yeah.
Right.
And New York Scrapbook. And Harvey did sections of paintings and wrote music. And if we can get some graphics too, he did some brilliant stuff. You know, some of the stuff is dated, but it's still, Mr. Off-Broadway is from that. We used it in that. And that's still funny. You know, at least to the condition.
Yeah.
Which we all are. And, but there are other things, you know, like, that are dated, but they're still, we did a thing of the 4 seasons in New York. Each did a song for each of them. But if you take something like Autumn at the Automat, oh, that's still, people know enough about the Automat. Still, I was working salads when someone else took sick. They moved me up to Meatloaf, where things can happen quick. I saw him and I loved him and I sliced his meatloaf thick. That's naughty at the Automat. So forth and so on.
Sondheim has a list of 100 songs he wished he had written. Is there a show or 2 you wish you had written?
Oh yeah, plenty of them, you know. But I can't think of those terms. The show I wish I'd written Henry V. I wish I'd written Measure for Measure. I wish I'd written Winter's Tale. I love Winter's Tale. I would, you know, and like that. Those are the shows I wish I'd written. And I'm still trying to write. Like La Tempesta.
We covered the other 2 that were unaddressed. I have a question. You spend more time going back to things you've written and perfecting them, maybe more than anyone.
Yes, it drives them, our licensing company, Music Theater, it drives them absolutely crazy, and rightfully so. You know, like, enough already, you know. But I can't bear it to know that I could make it better. It's like if you had a child and he had a cleft palate or something, you know, and I could make it better. It's criminal not to do it.
But the Fantastics is that.
It is. I don't believe I will ever write, but that's after lots of changes. You know, this last version, not just the rape song and that last line, but there are like 3 scenes that are rewritten that are much, much better.
And I think I believe all 5 shows we're doing in the series, you have at least tweaked a bit, if not major.
Yeah, I mean, the show goes on is probably most like the way it was done before. Roadside, yeah, we did a major gazinda and gazada. You know what gazindas and gazadas are? Dick Nash introduced me to that. It's like gazinda the song and gazada the song. He said he hated writing books for musicals because all he ever wrote was gazindas and gazadas. And the song people got to write all the good stuff.
There was something else that just got out of my head. And it was really true. This has been wonderful. What? Thank you, Tom, very much.
Thank you all.